Thank you for having me here, and then thank you for nice introductions. I'm Paul Yan. I'm at the Department of Chemical Biomolecular Engineering at UMD. So today I'm happy to be here to share one of our recent research on the automatic strain sensor design using, sorry about it, using the machine intelligence to do the automatic sensor design. And then this work is specifically for the application for soft machines. So since the application is focused on the soft machines, let's talk about what is soft machines. So soft machines, or you will know as the soft robots, is one kind of the devices that have a very outstanding compliance and adaptabilities. So compared to the traditional robots, they are normally made by hard materials like a steel or plastics. And those kind of material, when you interact with these kind of robots, you will feel like you are working with like something non-human or non-biological materials. So it actually will, the soft robots, they are making of like these soft matters, either elastomer or the hydrogels will provide us much safer and much compliant human-machine interfaces. So a lot of the research right now, they are moving from these conventional hard body robots into these soft body robots or machines. And the difference I differentiate the soft robot and soft machine is that soft robot is more like individual items. For example, like this one, this is a robot themselves without attached to the human beings. So we call it soft robots. The other type is called soft machines. It's actually you can wear these robots onto your bodies, and then those can be used as exoskeletons on the bodies. So these kind of wearables and then attachable robots to the human beings, I normally call it soft machines. And then these soft robot and soft machines, when you're trying to control it, the traditional way is to use the motors, and then you monitor the power output of the motors and to control their actuation, indicating their bending degrees or their deformations approach. But we still need a feedback control to control the robot behaviors. So people like to use these compliant strain sensors to give the real-time sensing capability and to understand how much my robotic body they bend or they deform, and then these can give us a closed loop feedback control, indicating when I see the sensors, I will know how much they bend, and I can control the motor accordingly. Okay, so one of the challenge for the strain sensor design for soft robot is that your strain sensor need to be highly soft and compliant, and also you want to have your strain sensor to be highly sensitive to the strain applied to the soft robots. Okay, and also you want to have a tunable working windows. So for the soft robots, sometimes they're working at a very low strain, less than 5%, or some of them working on very high strain, over 300% of the strain. These 300% of the strain is really high. It's like you are consider 1 centimeter of your robot, they will expand their body to like 3 centimeters. So if you look at this review article over here, it kind of like plot figures over here. The x-axis is the stretchability, indicating how much of your sensor can stretch. And then the y-axis is the gauge factor. Gauge factor is a normal way that we quantify the sensitivities. The equations over here. So you can see that there is a blank area over here. None of the current work has been targeted or has been achieved the high gauge factor at high stretchabilities. So this is the part we want to design, and because the sensor over here will be very suitable for the soft machines that can sense very high strength and very low strength, but at high sensitivities. So we want to utilize machine learning to help us to do so, because we know that the machine learning is a very versatile tool. They can build up a model to help us to predict or suggest recipes based on what the parameter give to them. However, in the material science, machine learning has been only utilized in those data-rich systems. indicating your data collections is easy and facile, and you can collect a lot of the data in the same times, in the shorter times. So you can see that it is really hard if you are making the strength sensors and then you want to get like 100 data to the machine learning model. It will take a lot of time because each strength sensor you probably need to take about 1 or 2 days to fabricate it, and sometimes you will fail, right? So it will take more time than you expect. Okay, so normally in the material science right now, science field right now, they are still using, for example, the simulations or some of the spectroscopy method to collect the data. So you can see there are several challenges over here if we want to build up a model for the strength sensor design. The first one is the low quality data. So because we cannot collect the data from the literature because strength sensor currently, there's no standardized protocol around the world to guide us how to fabricate the strength sensor in the same approach or following the same steps. So the data, if we collect the data from the literature, everyone using different materials, everyone using different characterization tools, the data we collect will be very unbalanced. So the second part is also unbalanced data. And the report in the literature normally will focus on, as we see earlier, they will focus on the specific windows. They will not cover lab-wide windows that we want to focus on for the soft robots. So these data, if we utilize the literature data, will be highly unbalanced. The last one, as I just mentioned, if we want to collect the data by ourselves, that will be very low data acquisitions. So the fabrications because the fabrication of soft strength sensor is normally time consuming, and it has the chances to fail the experiments. Okay, so this is two challenges over here. One challenge is for the soft strength sensor size is that it is hard to get the strength sensor over here for the soft robots. But machine learning also have the challenge of collecting data and especially high quality data. So what we are trying to do for this work is to utilize the machine learning method to execute a two-way design test. So we want to build up a machine learning models. What they can do is that if I have the soft machines and I know how much deformation they will have, I can put in the request into these machine learning models. And this machine learning model will be able to give you a suggestions of what kind of fabrication you need to have to fabricate the strength sensor that fit to these soft machines. Or the other way is that if I know my recipes, I can predict the performance. And if I want this performance, I can predict a recipe. So this is a two-way design test that we want to achieve in this work. Okay. So to tackle these kind of to tackle and build up these machine learning models, we come up with a three-stage construction framework. The first one, the first stage is called boundary definitions. The second stage is called active learning. The last stage is called data augmentations. So let me explain that a little bit regarding each stage over here. So the green ball over here, the ball over here, you can consider this is the design space now with multiple degree of freedoms for the strength sensors. When I talk about multiple degree of freedom, indicating when you fabricate a strength sensor, they will have a lot of parameters, like what kind of material you are going to use, what kind of morphology you are going to apply to active layers, what's the thickness of your active layers. Those are the degree of freedoms those are degree of freedom, and these degree of freedom will construct a multi-dimensional design space over here. And then the first thing we're going to do is that we're not going to explore entire space over here because some of the space over here, they are not experimentally feasible. For example, they want you to create like 1 nanometer thick of the layers, which is really hard for us to do the fabrications. So we need to block these invisible area away. So the first thing is that we are going to block some of the invisible space in the design in the design space. Okay, so the available experiment only comes out from the regions out of these gray areas. The second stage, what we're going to do is do the active learnings. For people you don't know active learning is a way that we progressively collect the representative data to enrich these multi-dimensional data sets. I'm going to use these figures for examples. For example, in the very beginning, we do some experiments, and then those are known data points, and this is the green dots over here. And the model will calculate the farthest points away from these unknown data points. And then that will suggest us to do the experiments on these red data points. Okay, and then we will follow the model's suggestion and then to do the experiment on these red data points. And then we will turn these red data points into a green one, indicating those are the data we know already. And afterward, they'll suggest another red one, and then we'll progressively explore the design space effectively. The last one is to do data augmentations. Based on what we have, the green dots over here, those are the experiment data points we have. We will utilize the virtual approach or in silico approach to create the virtual data points. That will reduce our efforts to do the real experiment, but still can increase the prediction accuracy of our machine learning model. So this is the three-stage construction framework we have been working on. And then let me show you one case study over here. So we want to make strain sensors by using 3 different materials. The first material is a 2-dimensional nanomaterial. It's called MXene. The second one is a 1-dimensional nanomaterial. It's called CNT. The last one is called polyvinyl alcohol. It's one of the polymers they can use as binders. And then these 3 materials, when they combine together, they have been known as strain sensing layers. Okay, so people in the literature study different loading of the MXene, different loading of CNT, and different loading of PVAs, and then how they will, and then they have optimized some of the compositions, but none of them really utilize all of them together to study their strain range, basically. The second parameters we focus on is the thickness. So the thickness of the strain sensing layer also affect their strain sensing performance. The last one is the morphologies. Different morphology will give you the different strain sensing performance. This is one of the example. This is some of the example over here. By changing the nano layer compositions, for example, MXene is 100%. We change a little bit to CNT and 4% or 10% to CNT. You can see that the performance of the strain sensing curve change dramatically. And also, even we control the same compositions, we just change the thickness. We can see that the performance also change a lot as well. And also changing the nanolayer morphology will also change your strain sensing performance. So as you can see, the parameters is really the parameters of fabrications and the performance of the strain sensor is highly nonlinear. It's highly nonlinear, and then we cannot utilize a traditional physical model to predict the performance based on what we have for the fabrication parameters. So what we are trying to do is to do these 3-stage machine learning model constructions. The first stage is the boundary definitions, and then we are going to utilize a support vector machine classifier. This is a very classic machine learning method to find out the boundary of the design space. So what we are trying to do is that we know we have 3 material over here, and then we'll filter it onto filtration papers, and then we'll put it into ethanol base to detach the active layers. So you can see when we change the compositions, we will see 3 different cases. One is feasible, indicating we can detach the film easily. The second case is fragile, indicating when we detach it, there's several cracks and also several pores onto the films. The last one is the fail, indicating we are not be able to detach the active layer from the membranes. So we do like the 351 mixtures by changing the PVA loading and the single wall nanotube loadings. So as you can see, we can block those gray area is the one when the PVA loading is high, we will not be able to do we will not be able to detach any of the film from the surface. Okay, and then we also have some of the purple one at the edge over here. And then we will put into these 351 data points into this SVN classifier, and then they will turn it into a heat map over here, or call it possibility heat map over here. So when you have a high possibility indicating when you recommend these compositions, I will have high possibilities close to 1, close to 100%. I can detach the film from the filtration membranes. So that can allow us to do the experiment afterwards. But if you suggest anything located in the gray area, I will not be able to do experiments. So these will serve as a screening layers for the machine learning models. Only the available recipe will be suggested out for the experiments. Okay. The next one is called active learnings. As I say, active learning is that we allow the model to guide us to explore the design space, the multi-dimensional design space. So in the very beginning, what we will do is that we will fabricate strength sensors. We fabricate strength sensors, and then we will measure their performance, and then we'll collect like 4 data points from their performance. We have the S0, S10, S100, and S1 max over here. And then we also have fabrication recipes. We have the different recipes. We have different material ratios, different thickness, and different morphologies. And then we will combine these fabrication recipe and the sensor characteristics as one data points. And then we will do multiple sensors at different composition and different fabrication parameters. And then we'll collect those data points, and then we'll put in the DT, the decision tree at the ANN algorithm to train models. And then you can see that in the very beginnings, the green dots is the one we know. And then afterwards, they will suggest the red dots not away from the green dots. And then we will do it again. We'll do it again based on the red dots, of fabrication recipes. And then they will turn these red dots into the green dots. So in this kind of case, you can see that the green area is the known regions, and then by doing multiple time experiments, we can expand our model boundaries close to the entire design space. Okay, so this is active learning, and then what we do is that we have done by using this method, we've done like 125 strength sensors, including 46 a planar surface, we call it G0. Including 31, which is with the wrinkled surface, and then the 48, which is with a crumpled surface. We have a different morphologies, and then the model suggests quite evenly numbers of the different type of the strength sensors into these models. And then you can see that you can see these figures over here. The L bar is the boundary of your database, and the MSE is the prediction accuracy of the sensor performance. So if you can see the block dots over here, when we beginning our active learning loop, these boundary will first increase, and then they will decrease afterwards, indicating when the model suggests in the very beginning will suggest to explain the boundaries, but after several rounds of the active learning, they will reach the boundary of the design space, and then they were starting to suggest the data points that they are not familiar with inside the design space. So you can see that they will drop quickly after 4th or 5th of active learning loop, and then also similar as MSE, in the very beginning they will increase a lot, and then they'll decrease afterwards, after more and more the data points that get inputted into the models. So after like 11, 12 rounds, we feel like they are stabilized. And if we are stabilized, and so we stop at 12 rounds. Okay. And then the next thing we are going to do is to utilize two data augmentation method. One is called SMOTE, REG. The other one is called UIP. And then to turn the real data point from 125, this is the real experiment data points, to 10K over here. So there are two different methods of the data augmentation here. The small is that if I have a data points, I have 3 data points over here, I will do the linear regressions and then to generate the data points between the 2 real data points. So the white one is the virtual one. Okay, so this is called the small REG. The UIP method is more like a user input principles. Is that based on the data points we have, if I move my data points a little bit, for example, if I move my CNT loadings like 1%, I will assume their device performance is the same or within the error range. So this UIP is based on what we give the number we give to them to generate the virtual data points. And afterwards, we utilize a specific method called genetic algorithm selections to optimize the prediction models over here. Okay, so I'm not going to into details of these GA selections, but these GA selection will help us to find out like the best prediction models with the lowest prediction errors from the multiple model we created after the data augmentations. So let's take a look at the performance of these models. So the green one, so you can see this one, we have the 3 different type of the sensor, G0, G1, and G1 1D and G1 2D. There are 3 different type of the sensors. And then the green dots over here is our experimental data, okay? And then you can see that after the active learnings, the model will give us a really wrong prediction over here. They will give us this blue one over here. And after we give them the UIP, give them the data augmentation and the genetic algorithm selections, they will push this blue one into the red one. So this quite close to the green one already. And similarly to the G1 1D sensors, this one will push it from the blue line to a red one. So by using data augmentation and the genetic algorithms, we can truly improve their prediction accuracy. Okay, the last, after we have this model, what we can do is that we can do the data analysis, static analysis, to understand whether there is some of the hidden design principle within the models. So we can see, this is the data we collect, and then we do some of the data analysis. We find out that the G0 sensors will only give us 3.3% to 60% strand range. G1 1D can push it to 100% strand, and G1 2D is most useful for the high strand range sensor. We're going to go up to 350%. So as you can see, if I want to utilize these strand sensors onto the soft robots, if my robot is focusing on low strands, the model will suggest as a G0. If the robot focuses on the high strand, they will suggest a G1 2D sensors in our case. We also use like the Pearson coefficient to understand whether there's any correlations within the sensors and the performance. So as you can see over here, in the G1 2D sensors, the CNT will actually play in most crucial role in the G1 2D sensor, indicating by changing the CNT compositions, my G1 2D sensor will get, the performance will get affected the most. Similarly, the G1 1D sensor will be equally important of the CNT and also the thickness. And then lastly is the G0 sensor over here is a planar sensors. You can see that by only changing the thickness, the G0 sensor will change the performance a lot. This is kind of like conflict with the current study in the strand sensors. Normally, a lot of the people, a lot of the group, a lot of research paper, they are working on the planar surface in the G0 strand sensor. They are changing the compositions. They are changing the CNT to other type of CNT to other type of 1D materials. However, the most crucial parameters could be the thickness themselves. So you don't need to even change the material inside for the planar surface strand sensor. You just need to change your thickness of your active layers. So this is the design rule that we develop based on the data we collect this. So it's very different from the traditional way that people develop a design rule. Traditional people develop the design rule is that they do one experiment and to understand one experiment and then discuss with their advisors or the experts. And then they come out and then the expert will suggest another one of the experiment and you do it again. And based on these kind of the discussions, you will come out with some of the design rule and then with the data supported on this one. But the way we create a design rule is different. Is that we will do it like blindly and then let the machine learning model to suggest to do the experiments. And afterwards, once we collect enough data, we use the data. We use the static analysis to kind of like to generalize the design rules based on the static analysis. Okay, so there are two different approach currently, and then this is what we do based on is a data-driven design rule. And then we can utilize the machine learning, the strength sensor suggested by the machine learning model onto the grippers. So you can see that if we have a soft grippers that will do 90% and 28% of the strength, and then we will ask the strength sensors we'll ask the machine learning model to suggest the recipe for us. So you can see that based on what model suggests to us, we are able to get a very significant, very high sensitivity of the strength sensing data for us to control the soft grippers. The last one, we also challenge our model to give us the suggestions for the strength sensor, not only focus within like several percentage of the strength, and then the model still be able to give us the sensor recipe that focusing on a very small strength over here. So we have been showing the model can do the sensor recommendations at high strength and also low strength. Some of the quick videos I want to show over here before I end these sections. This is the swimmer robots that we use, and then you can see at the left hand side there's 4 or 5 sensors attached over there, and then these kind of a sensor can monitors their flapping behaviors along the way. And then if you look at it into the resistance change over here, let me see, we have a resistance change. Yeah, here is a real-time monitoring. We can see we have the 5 sensors over here, and we have 5 sensors at different locations. So when they flap, you can see the resistance will jump quickly, and then we can count this peak to understand what's the frequency of the flappings. Yeah, and then if you change the frequency, you can count the peak, and then the peak will according to the frequency applied to the robots. Yeah, so this is really hard to make because the commercial strength sensor, they only focus on like 10 to 20 or 10 to 30% of the strength, but the strength over here is around 1% to 2%. So the commercial strength sensor is not available to do so. Anyway, so in this talk, I've been showing you a hybrid approach through the wet lab experiments and the machine intelligence to develop a high accuracy prediction model for the strength sensors that specifically utilized on the soft robots. And then one of the innovation we think is this 3-stage machine learning framework. We kind of combine the classic SVM classifier and an active learning loop and a data augmentation together to generate these prediction models. And this prediction model can help us to do this inverse design of the strength sensor based on the different requests from the diverse soft machines. All right, just acknowledgement to my students in both National University Singapore and UMD, and some of the collaborators over here. All right, thank you for your attention. Happy to answer any question.